I am from Maryland, and I'm really proud of being from there. My favorite place in the world is Ocean City, Maryland. Hell yeah, it's the best. I love it because you can go to Ocean City. It's the best beach in the world because you can go there, lay out on the beach, and eat a corn dog, and then you can look to your left and see a guy, a morbidly obese man in Confederate flag swim trunks, getting skin cancer because he thinks that sunscreen is only for women. And you can literally watch racism die in front of your eyes while eating delicious beach treats, you guys. You can sit there and get a tan and be like, progress is real and it is delicious. Oh, I love that place. I was there a few years ago.
Today on the Changeville Podcast, we're talking to Brandie Posey. Since her first comedy album, Opinion Cave, debuted at #1 on iTunes last year, Brandie Posey has been an incredibly busy artist. She has made appearances at RIOT Comedy Festival, Best, and New York Comedy Festival, just to name a few. She's even opened for Gainesville's own punk rock heroes Against Me and has performed on Comedy Central and MTV. Brandie was featured on the Burn the Selection record, which was released on Election Day, with all proceeds going to RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, in protest of Donald Trump. She now hosts Lady to Lady alongside fellow comedians Barbara Gray and Tess Barker, and will be performing at Changeville on March 3rd. We're honored to have Brandie on the show today. So how are things shaping up in 2017 so far, Brandie?
Good. I mean, it's weird because it's been like a, awful year just as like a country, but me individually, I've had like a pretty good year so far. So I'm crazy busy, but it's all good. I've got my two like big projects I do here in LA are we're shooting a pilot for one of them next Thursday, and then the other one, Lady to Lady, we're like we do like a Snapchat series for Comedy Central, and we're like just shot a bunch more, so we're like doing notes and stuff and getting those edits done, like turning them around pretty quick. So it's all good. Just kind of when it rains, it pours.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome though. Is there anything you can tell us about this pilot?
Oh yeah, definitely. So picture this is a show that is it's comedians paired up with animators, and then live animate your jokes behind you during their set. So it like feels like you're dealing with the most talented heckler ever. It's a show I've been hosting and doing for about 4 years now, and we take it to festivals all over the country. Like we've also like taken the show to like Melbourne and New Zealand, and kind of done it around the world a little bit too. And we've been trying to get it made into a show for a while, and we have a production company, Wanda Sykes' production company, Push It Productions. They partnered up with us, and they want to make it into a thing, hopefully. So we have like doing a live taping of it next Thursday, and then I don't know. Hopefully somebody wants to buy it. That's
awesome. Congratulations. That's really
Thanks.
cool. And then Lady to Lady is obviously going well.
Yeah. Lady to Lady's been great. I mean, we've been doing that together for the last just over 4 years now, and it's like the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I love it. It's we have like a Snapchat series where we play Would You Rather with each other, and then we like yell about them, and then we cut it all down to like a minute, and then we put it out through Comedy Central. So it's weird. It's like doing all this work for like a Snapchat video that's up for like a day is fun and strange, and makes me feel like I'm in the future a little bit.
Yeah, the idea of Snapchat is weird, and now that there's like professional Snapchats, like shows and organizations have people who do it, and like all the editing that goes into it when it's really just this strange little snippet, an entire comedy sketch for that. How did Lady to Lady get started? Like when did you guys decide that you wanted to do this, and how did that kind of form?
Yeah, well, so the other co-hosts in Lady to Lady it's like me, Barbara Gray, and Tess Barker, and we've all been really good friends in stand-up in Los Angeles for the last, I'm coming up on 9 years, so probably about that long we've known each other. And then like about 4.5 years ago or something, we, a couple of us were like standing outside of a different show, kind of just talking about how silly talk shows were. And we just kind of like riffed the idea of doing something called Lady to Lady, and it'd be like just like a funny version of The View, and we just kind of like goofed around. And a friend of ours at the time had just opened a black box theater that he was like, just running for like a year or so. And he had asked us if we wanted to do anything cool, and we were like, oh, see what Lady to Lady looks like on stage, just like mess around with it. And the first one just went so well, like our chemistry on stage once we all clicked in was just so good together. And we just kind of decided to start doing it as a live show. So we did it for a live show for about 6 or 8 months. And then it was monthly. And, we kind of just wanted to have an excuse to kind of like work at our banter and kind of build it up more. And we started doing a podcast just a way to kind of like, get more people to listen to us other than just the 30 that were in the theater every month.
Right.
And then we just kind of hit a point where, we were like, oh, man, we're doing this every week. This is the best. And, we interview like a different female comic every week. And our whole point is to be like, hey, women are funny. We're never actually going to talk about that. We're just going to be funny. And then that's just kind of answers the question for yourself. And we've been doing that for 4 years now. And we have fans all over the world, which is really awesome. It's been really cool to like have, get to hear from people that, we kind of like make their day and everything. I was very, very lucky to get to do something so fun with like 2 of my best friends.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast has gained obviously like a huge following in the past few years. I mean, but like early on, the first couple months you guys were doing it, it's like a live show in a black box theater. You said who were some of those first guests that you had on there?
Our very first guest was a comic in LA named Heather Thompson, who we're all good friends with, because we were like, well, if we're a shit show, we don't want to have anybody big on. But like we've had like Laurie Kilmartin's been on the show. We've had Beth Stelling's been on the live show. Cameron Esposito, like Laurie Keitlinger. Our only male guest we've ever had is we had French Stewart on, who's like a weird friend of our podcast. Barbara had a really big crush on him in high school, and we like got him on the podcast so she could tell him, and he's like become a good friend to all of us now because of that. So we like hang out with French Stewart on the regular, which is kind of funny.
The benefits of being famous, pretty much now.
yeah, basically, he's just a sweetheart. It's so funny because he's in all of our Facebook feeds, and it's just whenever you like hear French pops up, there's always a moment of just like, oh, I'm looking at French Stewart's kid. And he's like a good friend of mine that like messages me sometimes. It's so weird. I love it, but it just makes you laugh. Just goes to show if you just kind of go for what you want to do and, not really worry about, what the industry thinks you should be doing, then I've found it so much more fulfilling just to kind of like, go to the beat of my own drum and, you're not guaranteed anything and you just want to be, creatively fulfilled. And that's all I want really at the end of the day.
Right, and that kind of leads into my next question, actually. I was going to ask what kind of advice you have for anyone who's trying to make it in entertainment in general, I guess, but in particular in comedy.
Well, I mean, comedy is in an interesting place right now because it's more democratic than it's ever been, and there's more outlets for it than there's ever been. But the money isn't there. So, if you want to make a quick buck at it, that's not the reason to get into it. I'll say that. I think it's just working really hard. I mean, when I first started, I've been doing comedy. It'll be 9 years at the end of April that I've been doing stand-up. And when I first started, I was doing open mics, 7 nights a week, a couple of mics a night. And then I started running an open mic, and I hosted that for 3 years. And towards the end of that, I started hosting created another show that I used to do called the 4 and 20. And it's 4 comics doing 20 minutes each with a host. And it was just like to figure out how to do long sets, and nobody ever came to it, but it made me a better comic by just, having to figure out how to feel like that on stage. And I've always just kind of been creating the spaces that I wanted to see in the world. That's kind of what I've found is like the best way to go about things. If you're not seeing something, if you're not getting an opportunity, you just go and create it and work hard at it, and people will notice and, help, or it'll make you grow. And it's all about becoming undeniable. And, there's a lot of really talented people now, but you have to show that you can also work hard. That matters just as much. Right.
So since comedy is, like you said, there's so many outlets for it now, and I guess it's so much more accessible in a lot of ways. There's a lot more people trying to do the same thing, so you kind of have to create your own opportunities. I mean, because you're talking about hosting your own open mics and things like that, so sort of like heading up your own shows and taking the initiative there.
Yeah, I mean that's and that's just the way it's worked for me. Everyone kind of has their own different path, and I think a big thing to do is not get so hung up on what somebody else was doing and be like, well, why am I not getting that? Why am I not getting that? Like, well, maybe it wasn't right. Maybe that's not the way it should have gone down. And just trying to keep your blinders up to not be as focused on what else is happening. I mean, it's about kind of when you start your first couple of years, especially, like, you think you're funny, you're not actually funny. Like, I used to think I was funny, like, 2 years in, and I look back down, and I'm like, oh, no, you were just mean. You hadn't figured out how to be funny. I mean, I would get laughs and stuff, but, it wasn't consistent. It's all about muscle memory, and there's no way to shortcut that. The people that get a lot before they have the chops to back it up kind of tend to burn out, and everything comes out in the wash, If you can find things that make you creatively fulfilled, I think that's it's tortoise in the hare, you want to be a creatively fulfilled tortoise is what you want to be as you're going forward.
So what made you want to be a comedian, and when did you start performing?
Well, I always loved comedy. When I was a kid, stand-up wasn't necessarily where I kind of saw myself going, because when I was a kid, like, the comics that were on TV were, like, mostly, like, stand-ups were, like, backwards baseball cap bros that were kind of, like, loud and bratty, and there wasn't anything that I really wanted anything to do with. But I was really obsessed with, like, sketch comedy, like Mr. Show and Kids in the Hall and SNL and Mad TV and everything. And me and my friends would, like, we would always watch SNL and then, like, bring in our critiques of the episodes on Monday in, like, middle school, and just be like, I remember, like, transcribing some of my favorite sketches just because I was like, I need to remember this, because it was before, YouTube, way before YouTube, which is weird to say and dates myself, but where I was. I had, like, a VHS tape that I would tape SNL, and then, like, I would watch it a couple times that week, and then I would retape the next one, and I just had one tape that I just reused constantly. And, like, so I was really obsessed with that. So I went to school. I went to Drexel in Philadelphia for screenwriting and for filmmaking, because I was like, well, I want to know how this whole world works. Like, I love movies and TV, and I just wanted to understand every aspect of it. And I never really saw myself as a performer because, I never really cared. It's always kind of been about telling the story, and whatever my role in that is different per thing, So, like, I went to school for screenwriting, and, like, all I wanted to do was make sketches, and I would, like, fight with my professors all the time, because they were like, why can't you just make, like, short films that are about, like, serious shit? And I was like, oh, that's stupid. I don't know why anybody does that. I've never, like, watched one of those. Why would I make something that I would never want to watch?
Yeah.
So I just, like, fought with them for 4 years about comedy. But it was fun, though, because, like, I had, like, I'm glad I went to Drexel, because, like, I had, like, a 6-month internship, and I moved out to LA for 6 months. And during that 6 months, it was right when the UCB Theater, Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in Los Angeles started. And I would just go to shows there all the time. And that's kind of when I started seeing, like, Paul Tompkins and Maria Bamford and, like, Jimmy Pardo and Patton. Like, it was right when he was, like, a big deal, but it was, like, right when everybody else was starting to get big. And I, would go to Comedy Death Ray at the time, now Comedy Bang Bang. And I would just see all these comics that, like, I was like, oh, these are my people. Like, this is who I have a lot of stuff in common with. I don't know who the hell those people are on TV. I don't want anything to do with them. But, like, these are comics that are, like, very passionate about Abraham Lincoln and the specials. Like, cool, I love presidents and ska music. Please, talk to me about it. So I would go to those shows, and I took sketch classes and improv classes out here when I first started, and then went back, finished up school, moved back out here pretty much immediately right after, and then I took, like, a stand-up workshop when I started, and I just argued with my teacher the entire time because she was, like, a road dog, which is fine, it takes all kinds to make a world, but, like, I just didn't like a lot of the stuff that she was saying. But it was good because it kind of made me, what should we call it, just kind of like, it's echoing back at me again. It's okay. It made me kind of, like, justify a lot of my choices that I was making very early on. So then I just started doing open mics after that. Like, after the class, I was like, okay, cool. What do I need to do? I need to do open mics now. And I initially started because I was like, well, I want to be a writer, but I also feel like I needed to have some sort of, like, instant gratification because I'm I have ADD, and I'm definitely not patient enough to like wait 2 years for somebody to read something.
Yeah.
So if I think my jokes are funny, they'll want to read my scripts or something. So it's kind of where I started, and then I kind of just fell in love with stand-up after that.
So you talk about sort of finding that niche of comedians there, where it's not who you see on TV, it's not all these bigger comedians that you might know about. And is that sort of what draws you to festivals? Like, I know you've played, you've performed at Fest in Gainesville, and the only thing I can kind of compare that to is sort of like the DIY side of music, sort of like the punk rock festivals for stand-up. Is that sort of what that's like?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm lucky to call him a friend, but like Kyle Cadena is like a huge influence on me in a lot of different ways. Just the way that he's kind of handled his career is that he does he would never call himself like a DIY comic, but he was doing well at clubs, but he didn't really like those audiences, and he was like, well, I'm just going to start trying to book small clubs at like music venues and small tours at music venues, and see if I can kind of build an audience that way. And I've always been a person that like I never really liked comedy clubs. I didn't really care about them. I was like a huge punk ska kid, so it's like that. Those people are always like who I connect the most with. So it's like, well, where are those people? Because they're gonna like me. How do I find them? Yeah. And there's a lot of comics now that I think were little pop punk kids or punk kids back in the day, and now they're in their 30s, and they're like, well, my knees hurt. I can't be in a band anymore.
I could tell jokes and open for the band.
Yeah. A ton of comics like that. But it is like with that same kind of like that scene ethos that you kind of bring to, that's been brought to stand-up, that's kind of democratized it, though. Where it's like, when I first started, a bunch of my friends that I started with, we were all like, okay, cool, we're all going to start shows, and we're all going to support each other's shows, and we're just going to, like, keep going each other's stuff and being supportive and trying to, like, build a scene together. And, kind of, I've been told before that in LA, there just really wasn't, like, a group of comics that were kind of really working together with like a similar aesthetic to kind of try to build something. But, there's like a bunch of us, like it's me, Dave Ross, Alistair Williams, Barbara, Jake Weissman. We all kind of started together and really had like that kind of DIY spirit that we kind of like applied to it. Because we're like, why would we go to a club and just wait for them to put us up when, that doesn't make us better comics to like sit around and wait. Like we could be working hard and building our own shows and run the shows that we want to run and be in charge. We're just control freaks with colored hair, basically.
Control freaks with colored hair, the epitome of DIY everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no reason that those scenes should be separate, as far as like the punk scene and the comedy scene. Like you have a similar message, you have a similar attitude towards it. And especially with sort of like the social change aspect of it, heading towards there with what you guys did with Burn This Election, I think that's a prime example of applying that attitude.
Yeah, completely. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Those listening, Burn This Election was like a compilation album we did with 28 comics in LA that we released on Election Day. Because, I've been on tour before, and there were all these comics that I was working with around the country that just had all these, like, insane, really funny jokes about the election. And, the thing about comedy is that, like, when you go to like, a comedy show, like, there aren't people being like, play the hit. Yeah. It doesn't happen.
Aside from, like, Monty Python, parrot sketch thing.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, do it again. I want to see it. But, like, with... especially with topical material, it's like it's good and then it's gone so bad. But like with the way that like digitizing stuff has gotten so cheap and easy to do, I was like, man, this election is really important. We have a lot of really great people are doing really great material that's important, and I think people need to hear because everybody feels like they're in an abusive relationship with democracy right now. And I take it to Stephen Colbert has this quote that I think about a lot where he talks about how like the sound of laughter is the opposite of being afraid, because to laugh is you basically saying I am here and I am joyous, like this is where I am and I am happy. Like you can't, that's the opposite of fear. And like I think about that a lot with comedy, and it's like, you know, it kind of like informs what I want to write stuff about, because it's like, you know, this is stuff that there's a lot of really serious, horrible stuff happening right now in the world, and you know, to be able to laugh at it is to take a little bit of power back from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, you know, whatever I can do to help with that, I want to.
That's an interesting quote, actually. I hadn't heard that before, and that's so true. I mean, I like to think, you know, if you can't laugh at something, then it's won in a way.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about taking the power back, and with this record, there's a sample up of it on YouTube, I think, with some with some of the jokes, and it is it's goddamn hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I need to get my hands on that. Whose idea was it to actually donate the proceeds to RAINN, though? How did that get started?
That was my idea. So every sale and every stream, all of it all goes to RAINN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And when I was thinking of the idea, I was like, well, I'm going to do a compilation album. Everyone's going to make $5. Like, that doesn't matter. But if we can pull it together and donate to somebody good, that'll be great. And I was like, oh, I thought of it basically maybe like a week after the Trump tape where he talked about grabbing women came out. And I was like, oh, what would Donald Trump hate? Oh, we donated money to a rape abuse victim. Cool. That's kind of like where the idea came from, to donate to them as just like an extra FU to him.
It's incredible how just like the return to sexism now, like it's, you know, you'd think that by 2017 that someone like that wouldn't take office. I mean, preaching to the choir here, obviously, but like, yeah. And that's another question that I had here for you. Like, as a female comedian, have you faced adversity in your career, right? Because I mean, I know there's sort of like that debate of you know, can women be funny, and you know, you guys are like, well, we're not even going to talk about that. We're just going to be funny, and we're just going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my way of dealing with it, because I feel like every time I see something written about it, I'm just like, oh God, why are you even writing about this? Because it's like, it's such a ludicrous premise to even start from, that like half of the world is incapable of being funny. You know, it's like, what are you talking about? You've never laughed at a woman in your life? That's your problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It comes up on you. Or, you know, or laughed with a woman too. Either way, we'll take it whenever we can get it. But like, I mean, I'm sure I've faced some stuff. I mean, I have purple hair. I, you know, I'm not traditionally attractive. I think I'm not that bad, but you know, whatever. But like, so, you know, automatically I make myself kind of a niche character out of the gate. And, you know, a lot of the people that are industry gate holders are fucking Dave Matthews Band fans. So like, they don't even know what to do with me. So, you know, you face, you know, everybody's got their thing. I mean, like, also, there definitely are people I've talked to in the industry that just have no idea about what to do with female comics. It's gotten a lot better, which is really great. But I did like a festival a couple years ago, and I was like talking to one of like the bookers for another big festival, just kind of chatting, and he was like telling me about how he'd come under fire about like the lack of women on his festival the year before, and he was like, I mean, they're just like not at open mics. They're just like not working as hard. And I was like, what are you talking about? What even are you saying? I know you're not going to open mics. Who's telling you this? Oh, your weird loser friends? Like, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, the more women are coming into positions of power in those kind of situations, though, the better, which is great. You know, I mean, like I think as comedy has become more democratized and there's more ways that people can build their own fan bases without gatekeepers in the way through, like, you know, YouTube and Twitter and podcasts and everything, I think people are becoming undeniable, and like the old forces like are kind of like, well, okay, people seem to like them. Let's figure out how to use them, you know. And I don't really care if those people think I'm funny. I care that my fans think I'm funny, and whatever I can do to like make more of those is the thing that matters, you know. So it's kind of just trying to prove the point without needing to, you know, bust some skulls.
As civilized as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, It is frustrating because it is like it's hard. You know, sometimes you have a bad night. And you kind of just want to like go up and just rage on stage, but like it's like okay, which is a thing. You know, you see guys have tantrums on stage all the time, but you can't really do that as like a gal because there's somebody in the room. They're like, oh boy, well, geez, that's the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, as far as other female comedians go, like, you know, past and present, who are some of your major influences?
I mean, huge Maria Bamford fan. Obviously, she's insane and amazing. Karen Kilgaris is somebody that I look up to and love a lot, just as a person. I mean, she's so salty and takes no shit, and is just the best. And it's so funny, and has worked in so many different mediums, and is constantly like evolving and trying different stuff, and is all about her work and not about her ego, which, you know, I love. You know, Jackie Cation and Marie Kilmartin are good pals, and they're amazing. And like, it's cool too because there's a lot of younger comics working. I know a lot of the younger gals in LA that are doing open mics and stuff, and they it's cool to see them build off of how my generation of female comics has moved the goalpost forward, and like to see them kind of like pick it up and like take it even further with like, you know, they're so unapologetic about dealing with sexism in a way that like took me and my friends a couple of years of doing stand-up to kind of get to a point where we felt comfortable even like, you know, rocking the boat a little bit. And they out of the gate are all just like, no, not going to deal with it. And it's really cool just to kind of see the progress and evolution of how female comics have like moved the bar forward from each generation, you know, from Joan Rivers up to now. It's like, I look forward to the day when the stuff that I do is as problematic as Joan Rivers was in her later years. That will have meant that like great things have happened in between.
Well, I guess with each generation, you sort of, you have to, you don't have to be as apologetic maybe, but there also just becomes more, I mean, especially in the United States now, you sort of just become more frustrated with the fact that people think you should be apologetic. People think that you should be reserved or whatever it is, because it's been so long that I feel like, you know, it should be no holding back out of the gate. We should be able to talk about and make fun of these things openly, which you know, you clearly do. And yeah, definitely. Well, and also like just the internet has been able to bring us together as female comics in a way that, you know, before, you know, you'd be the token booked on a show. So, you know, if there's 20 female comics in your scene, you're kind of booked one by one and, you know, and around town at different times. So you don't really get to bond and hang out in a way that a lot of the guys have had for a long time. But like, you know, with the internet and like Facebook groups and like, you know, getting to see each other's jokes on the regular, and, you know, a lot of bookers have gotten a lot better about being like, oh, I can have more than one woman on a show. Isn't that crazy? I can even have multiple races on the same show. It's insane how that works. But you like get to kind of see each other and like build a camaraderie that when I first started, like you would see each other at open mics, which is where it happened, which is cool. And like we kind of have been the first generation to really kind of like build and be conscious of that in a way that, you know, I listen to older female comics talk about it, and they're like, oh yeah, no, we never saw each other. We like would email each other to kind of try to stay in touch, but like it's hard to build like a casual rapport with people if you don't see them very often. Yeah, I didn't even really think about that. That's true, because when you're watching sort of, you know, whether it's shows where they have comedians sit down to talk or late night shows, there's usually one female comedian to represent sort of what I guess they view as the minority in the scene. Yeah, that's strange. Does that still kind of happen to you when you're getting booked to go, you know, be interviewed or talk on different things? It will sometimes. Overall, it's definitely gotten a lot better. But you know, there's definitely still are times where I'm the only gal on something, and then you just kind of have to be like, well, I'm just going to have to fight harder for this because my point of view matters more. And also, you know, you're kind of on the defensive too, because like, you know, you're the only one representing that point of view. So other people are like, really? Or is that true? Like you're you know, you're othered pretty much immediately. You know, it has gotten a lot better, which is great, and it gets better all the time. You know, I mean,
younger bookers now, especially, are just like, that isn't even, you know, they're like, oh yeah, no, we're going to have like 3 women on a show. That isn't even like a question. And the question now is like, you know, how many people of color can we get on the show? You know, it's great to kind of see it's a really stark generational divide, actually. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it'll hopefully reach the day where it's just sort of booking who's funny, you know, and not having to sort of like keep these tabs on it and be like, oh, well, we need a token, you know, female or a token, you know, black comedian or whatever it may be. So.
Absolutely. Well, and it makes your shows better too, because, you know, it makes it easier on your straight white dudes if there aren't 5 of them, because, you know, then they can actually just like express their point of view as opposed to being like, oh shit, the last 3 guys had the same premises as me.
Yeah.
Oh man. Like, I mean, I've done shows like that where I've like watched like 4 dudes have basically the exact same act back to back. And their jokes are funny and they're a little bit different, but you're like, okay, well, so we've just been talking about, you know, baseball and your dick for like the last hour. Like, that's boring. Yeah. You know, throw somebody else up there that has something else to say to break it up. You know, it just makes it for an altogether better show.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody.
That's part of comedy, I feel like, is having people with different opinions, different backgrounds, so that you can all come together and just make fun of each other. I mean, that's what's going to be more funny anyway.
Absolutely.
So I got one more question for you before we wrap things up. This is something that I ask all of our guests. What one song do you think everyone needs to hear, and why?
Oh, man.
It's usually a tough one.
This is such a big question. I love music so much. Music was like my first love. Like, I didn't want to do it professionally because I cared about it too much. You guys are in Gainesville. Is it hack to say a Less Than Jake song?
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It has to be a Gainesville artist.
Yeah. I mean, they have a song off of I don't remember the name of the album, but it's called My Own Worst Enemy, and it's like it's on every playlist I've ever made.
Yeah.
So I would say that just because it's one of my favorite songs that I listen to all the time. And it's just about being like, well, I'm the only person in my own way. Get out of it. Move. And, you know, they're from Gainesville, so I'm pandering now for people to come to my show.
Well, yeah, people, I'm sure that's one that everybody's familiar with. But if you're listening and you're not familiar with that, you need to go buy a Less Than Jake record, because living in Gainesville and not going to Wake and Bake Fest is weird.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what are you doing? I would be there every year if I didn't live across the country. They were my first favorite band, and I'm like obsessed with them a little bit.
Well, they're awesome because they were one of the first like ska punk bands kind of of that scene that I listened to when I was younger, and then I moved here not even knowing their whole backstory and that they came from here. And I got to open for them at Wake and Bake Fest last year, and it was just absolutely surreal. It was a great show, and like P-Lander Z played. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
They're nuts. Yeah, the human bowling thing was fantastic. Yeah.
That's so cool. If people want a non-Less Than Jake song, the song "Overcome" by RX Bandits is a song that I've been listening to a lot lately. It was written in 2004 after Bush was reelected, but it is more and more resonant now today.
Yes, I think I actually know that. I have a friend who's a big fan of RX Bandits. That is also relevant now, unfortunately.
It's so crazy how that whole album of like all of the albums that came out when Bush got reelected are like now relevant again, and I'm like, oh man, cool! I can dust all this stuff off.
Yeah. I love these records, but
checkered seatbelt belt.
I'm gonna grow the sideburns back out, get my checker clothes. I was hoping this stuff wouldn't be relevant anymore, but you know, it's good.
I know. I'm trying to grow as a person, but the world won't let me.
That's the essence of punk rock music right there. That's in and of itself.
Yeah, basically.
Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm really excited to see your set at Changeville.
No, thanks. Well, thanks for talking. This has been great. I'm looking forward to meeting you.
Thank you so much to our guest, Brandie Posey. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode of the Changeville Podcast. Until then, check our website or Facebook page. Our lineup is out now and includes Talib Kweli performing with a full band, Amy Ray of the Indigo Girls, Moon Hooch, David Bazan, Big Sam's Funky Nation, Big Frida, and of course, Brandie Posey. Tickets are going fast, so get yours now. Until next time, this is Matt, signing out.
I was listening to this story in NPR recently, though, that kind of stressed me out. They're doing this story about how the government is working on these supplements to make it so our soldiers can eat less and sleep less while also making them stronger and faster, which is a thing that we shouldn't do to people. Especially because, I don't know if you guys know this, but, like, the VA system is kind of fucked up as is. Like, basically, if we're giving those supplements to soldiers, we're creating super soldiers. And super soldiers means super veterans. And that means super homeless people. And I don't know about you guys, but my midnight taquitos are scary enough as is. I don't need the guy outside of 7-Eleven to also have laser vision. Let's get him a warm place to sleep at night. Before that shit happens, I don't want to go for a run and a guy comes up to me and he's like, I can see all of time. And he can actually see all of time because we did that to him. I don't want to go to my favorite dive bar and a guy comes up to me and he looks like Captain America and he's like, give me all your money, I used to be a hero. I'm so hungry and so strong. And that's his voice because we gave it to him. Just because we can doesn't mean that we should. That joke ends in a sad truth instead of a punchline. Where my drones at? Everywhere.